Let's go to the summary first, and then I will do a bit of the fire sermon. In fact, I was wanting to do a bit more on the fire sermon, but let's see how it goes. The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot is considered one of the most important poems, and it's a modernist masterpiece, dramatic monologue, changes speakers, locations, and times throughout. The Wasteland draws on a dizzying array of literary, musical, historical, and popular cultural allusions in order to present the status of modern world post World War One. So you'll see that Wasteland is basically a very fragmented poem, bits and pieces. It's like a mosaic. First out of the 5 sections of Wasteland starts with the burial of the dead. In fact, Ankush has given a lot of explanation regarding that, so I'm not going into it. The memories, the narrator is surrounded by a wasteland full of stony rubbish, remembers a fortune teller named Madame Sosostris, who said he was drowned a Phoenician sailor and that he should fear death by water. And you will find this Phoenician sailors about him later on in the other part of his poem. And that he should, okay. Next, he finds himself on London Bridge. This is the unreal city, surrounded by a crowd of people. He spots his friend, a friend from World War One, and calls him out. Third section, this is the fire sermon, which I'll be doing with you. It opens with an image of a river. Narrator sits on the banks and muses on the banks. Say, okay, I will just, skip through this thing because anyways, I'm going to do it with you people. Fourth section of the poem is Death by Water. It describes sea. Earlier we saw Madame Sosostris talking about fear death by water. In the fourth section, Death by Water, you come across the same Phoenician sailor. The dead Phoenician is lying in the water under the sea, perhaps the same drowned sailor of whom Madame Sosostris spoke about. Last section is what the thunder said, shifts from the sea to rocks and mountains where narrator cries for rain and it finally comes. Thunder rumbles as Da from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Datta Dayadvam Damyata. To give, to sympathize, to control. At last, Eliot mentions the Sanskrit words Shanti 3 times to represent peace and spiritual salvation. Okay, so let me just go to the fire sermon. I don't know how many of you are having your poem with you, the fire sermon portion of your from your study book, because I really want to give a few explanations on that. And before that, that reminds me, when Ankush was doing the game of chess, there's one thing I would like to mention here about the game of chess. Game of chess is a very cunning game. It's a game of strategy. It's a game of scheming. You really got to be intelligent and you got to think in advance to overcome your opponent. So it is an intellectual match. So here one opponent seeks to outwit the other. So when you're looking into this poem, The Game of Chess, you will find that each one is, they're playing this game because ultimately life has just ended up as nothing else. There is no conversation or no communication between the two people. It's just ending up in a game of chess, a strategy where each one is trying to outwit the other, to conquer the other. So this is what I just wanted to put it across, where where the game of chess was just an additional input I wanted to give you. Okay, fire sermon. I would like to start this. Now the element fire in this section is actually preached by the Buddha. And Eliot says that the Buddha's sermon is comparable to Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in its meaning and significance. So Buddha says that the source of all suffering is desire. Now, if you kill desire, then you can kill suffering. So to reach that higher state of desirelessness, you need to neutralize everything that is required, to kill desire. So in the beginning, he starts with a picture of the Thames in London, the Thames River, and he talks about the river tent is broken. The last fingers of leaf clutch and sink to the wet bank. So you can just imagine yourself. The Thames in London, it's being covered with those trees. The shade of the trees. Like sometimes when you're driving on a road which has got trees on both sides, and both those trees are meeting the road, like a canopy. So it's just like that. You'll find a lot of trees around, hanging over the river, and these trees are all, they're shedding their leaves because the season has changed, and the last fingers of the leaf, very it's full of imagery, when he mentions this. The last fingers of leaf clutch and sink into the wet bank. Okay, so the season here described is autumn, and the shelter is lost. So there's no shelter because there's hardly any leaf on the tree. Everything is exposed to harshness and the cruelty of winter. So in the burial of the dead, we saw April being the cruelest month, followed by summer, and in fire sermon we come to autumn, which will be followed by winter. Here there's a prayer for the sweet Thames to continue softly. It is excerpt from Spenser's old wedding song, sweet Thames, run softly while till I end my song. By the waters of Lament I sat down and wept. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. So in the first paragraph, first stanza, he talks about, there are friends loitering, heirs of city directors. So that it's like, that it's a meeting place of lovers, but these lovers have actually no connection with the other except for a physical connection. Is nothing else but just physical. There is no mental or emotional attachment to them, so they don't leave any addresses. Then we come to the other line. By the waters of Lament I sat down and wept. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. If any of you are sitting with your poem in front of you, you'll be able to follow me. Okay. So by the waters of Lament, I sat down and wept. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. So here, waters of Lament is the lake in Geneva where the writer was writing this poem. And it's quite a bit biographical because Eliot himself is sitting and weeping, when he's sitting there. There was some personal thing that took place in his life. So, and that memory of those events are no longer present. So he's thinking about it and he is weeping. He's thinking, what has the world come to? What it was before, now it is different. So there's a biblical reference to the Psalm 137, where we are talking about the exile of the Jews from Holy Land. I'm sure some of you must have heard of this Bonnie M, if I'm not mistaken. They sing that song, By the Rivers of Babylon, where we sat down. So it's something to do with that. So here it says, by the waters of Babylon, where we sat down and wept, when we remembered Zion. So how can we sing such a song in a foreign land? So this particular line is taken from this psalm. The Thames that runs by is no longer sweet, and a jubilant song has now been reduced to a whisper. See, sweet Thames runs softly. So that means it has been reduced to a whisper. Back at my back in a cold blast, I hear a rattle of bones. So here, this is another line which I'd like to explain. You must be remembering when we did earlier in one of the presentations, we had Andrew Marvell's To His Coy Mistress. We talked about Time's winged chariot. So here, these lines are a reference to that particular poem. Back at my back in a cold blast, I hear the rattle of bones and chuckles spread from year to year. So here also it's talking about time, but here Eliot hears the rattle of bones, that is a laughter of death, to impress upon us that we are in the wasteland where all prospect of growth, resurrection, and beauty and meaning has already passed away. Then we come to another line. While I was fishing in the dull canal on a winter evening, round behind the gas house, musing upon the king, my brother's wreck, and on the king, my father's death before him. So here, the time frame has changed. You know, autumn has now gone to winter. The speaker has moved from fall to winter, and fishing in the dull canal is ironic over here, because a dull canal means it could be a polluted canal. There's no life in the river. So then this point of fishing, the prospect of fishing itself is quite ironic. So here the speaker is musing on ancient kings, and here there is a reference to the myth of the fisher king. White bodies naked on the low damp ground, and bones cast a little low dry carrot, rattled by the rat's foot only year to year. Now here, this particular line, it's an allusion, it's not allusion, it's taken with reference to the Great War, you know, the World War. Here all, you know, bodies are strewn all over the place, it's not cared for, only the rats are moving among them, and they were not given proper burials, they were not remembered, they were not honored, they were not respected as soldiers who fought for the glorious cause. So these were just simply bodies, stripped naked, decaying on low, damp ground and festering and becoming one with the earth itself, you know. So this is the explanation of that part, white bodies naked on the ground, rattled by the rat's foot only year to year. But at my back, from time to time, I hear the sound of horns and motors. You know, here when you look at Eliot, when he's writing this poem, he is literally jumping from one scene to another. And remember yesterday when I was doing a presentation, I was talking about streams of consciousness, where, you know, whatever comes into your mind, you're putting it on paper. So here, this is something like that. You know, he's thinking of something, and suddenly something comes on his mind, something you know, pokes itself in between, and then he's putting, okay, let me put that also on paper. But there is, overall, when you look at it, there is some order in the chaos, and there is something to unify everything. If you look at it, if you look into it in detail, in depth, not on the superficial level. Okay, so back at my back, from time to time, I hear the sound of horns and motors, which shall bring Sweeney to Mrs. Porter in the spring. So here we are having a fundamental shift in the tone of the poem. Now we are having three different preludes to set for which sets the tone for a sexual romantic love that is possible in the wasteland. Now in wasteland, what kind of love do you have? You have love that is devoid of communion. It is not pure, and it is not uncorrupted. That means love is corrupted here. There is no pure ideal intimacy between the lovers. This, because this particular concept, you know, love is blind, and, you know, till death do us apart, and that kind of ideal intimacy, that emotional connection, it is an outdated concept in the modern world. So here we come across a character, Sweeney. Sweeney is a character which Eliot has used in other works, and he's a promiscuous lover. He's a man of many colors, he's raucous, he's sexually deviant, he does not respect sexual mores and standards. And Mrs. Porter here could be a married housewife. So Eliot mentions the advent of spring, the mating season. Spring, you know, is talking about regeneration, reproduction. So it's a mating season, which is corrupted by illicit love affairs and sexuality that is outside the moral boundaries. So the first image of illicit love in this poem is the encounter of Sweeney and with Mrs. Porter. And in between, when they are introduced into this picture, you will suddenly come across 3 or 4 lines, you know, twit, 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 jug, 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 these repetitive words, so rudely forced to. So here he is bringing into the picture about Philomela, which the rape of Philomela, which Ankush has already covered. And Twit, Twit, Twit is a song of the nightingale, the song produced by the nightingale. And Jug, Jug, Jug is the sexual act, the sound of the sexual act. So rudely forced. Rudely forced means Taru had had raped Philomel against her wishes. You know, he had a sexual contact with Philomel against her wishes. So that is why so rudely forced and Tarot. So after Philomel was raped, then, her tongue was cut off and she couldn't speak. Then she wove a tapestry, with a picturesque tapestry. She wove it and she gave it to her sister, and her sister saw this tapestry, and then she realized that it was her husband who had raped her sister. And then, the story where about the son, being cooked for food and as a feast, and he eats her. And then Philomela becomes a nightingale. Now the next part, he comes the unreal city. We are again coming to the unreal city. It was in the burial of the dead we saw the unreal city. Now again we are coming to the unreal city. Now you will notice here the environment of this unreal city, the brown fog on a winter noon. So it's full of pollution and it's wasteland. The color, there is no color in here. There's no green, blues and yellows. It's all brown and dark, and that kind of a scene it is. And this third encounter, so the first encounter we saw is between Sweeney and Mrs. Porter, and the second encounter is this image of the rape of Philomel by Thoreau. Then the third encounter is going to be, if we are talking about the homosexuality, that relationship between Mr. Eugenides, who's a Smyrna merchant. He is having a luncheon at Cannon Street Hotel. Now, the details of this hotel is given. It's basically, when you look into it, you'll find that this place is actually, it's a common venue for homosexuals. Now, these encounters reveal three different perversions and corruptions of pure, innocent, sacred love. See, you have the rape, you have the illicit love affair, and you have homosexuality. These are three different perversions other than, the normal love relationship between a man and wife. So pure, uncorrupted intimacy is not possible in the wasteland. When you look at it, you'll find that pure, uncorrupted intimacy is not possible in the wasteland. Now you come to the stanza where the poet says, "At the violet hour, when the eyes and back turn upward from the desk, when the human engine waits like a taxi throbbing waiting." So here we find an unsatisfying depiction of love in the wasteland. Violet hour is a time of day when the magic and the supernatural occurs. And here the typist is the human engine. Okay, she is being referred to as a human engine. That is because she's a mechanized object and she's waiting like a taxi, waiting for the evening encounter to take place, throbbing, you're like a taxi throbbing and idling around, waiting for a customer. So just like that, she is like a human engine waiting for a customer, for someone to come. I, Tiresias, though blind, throbbing between two lives, old man with wrinkled female breasts can see. Now here, this is the first time when we are, we are being introduced to the narrator Tiresias. And like Sibyl, he was a seer. That means a person who could see, look into the future. And he's a mythological figure who was cursed and experienced, and he had both a male and female identity. So he knows both sides, what women's feelings are like and what a man's feeling is like. He knows both of that. So he's the best person to give us an account, of what the woman is feeling. So though he was physically blind, he was able to see beyond the physical landscape of wasteland. He was able to see the reality and truth beyond the physical realm and the interaction of the characters within it. So at the violet hour, the evening hour that strives homeward and brings the sailor home from sea. So here, Tiresias is watching. He's the one who is narrating this. He is seeing that the expectation, this typist is expecting a wonderful homecoming of her lover. He's coming home after a long time, so she's expectantly waiting for him. And what is a scene like that in her room? On the divan are piled at night her bed, stockings, slippers, camisoles, and stays. So here we notice that she is of a lower class, for common background, and her divan is functioning also as her bed, and all her underclothes are lying all over the place. I, Tiresias, old man with wrinkled dugs, perceived the scene and foretold the rest. So now Tiresias is giving the details of the scene itself and he's foretelling the rest. So he is telling, this is what I see, and now you see, this is what is going to happen. He is allowing us to see the prophetic vision which we are unable to see because we do not know what's taking place between the typist and that man. But Tiresias is watching this and he is giving us an account of this. So he is giving us a model of all sexual encounters that take place in the modern era. So that means, when you see what is happening in these lines, when he has explained these lines, you will know that this is what takes place in most of the encounters that take place in modern society. So he's just giving a peep into that. So I too awaited the expected guest. He, the young man. Now he's describing the person who is the guest that is who's coming in. He's a low class man who has the assurance of a rich person. He's a narcissist. He loves himself. His looks and everything. He's a small house agent's clerk with one bold stare. So here when you read this poem, you read these lines. This man. He's basically there just to get some satisfaction, a physical satisfaction, and that's it, nothing else. The experience is not romantic. His caresses are not desired. She does nothing to hinder his advances. So what he does is he just goes about the perfunctory act of having sex with her just to burn out his passion. He is not bothered about whether she has enjoyed herself or not, and she herself is she is just lying there, just taking it as it comes, and he bestows one final patronizing kiss and gropes his way, finding the stairs unlit. So you will notice that the experience is not romantic, his caresses are not desired, and she does nothing to hinder his advances. So, and you will notice that this man, he is not looking for requited love. He is not looking for a response from her. He is not bothered about that. He has had his satisfaction. So basically, she is used as an object. And Tiresias empathizes with the situation because he has seen and he has actually suffered the same situation earlier on, because he's had this life earlier. And this moment of intimacy has concluded abruptly. So once he's satisfied, the man just gives her a patronizing kiss and gropes his way, and he finds the stairs, finding the stairs unlit. Now, what does a woman do, the typist? She turns and looks a moment in the glass. Yeah, and then she smooths her hair with automatic hand and puts a record on the gramophone. So she's hardly aware of her departed lover. Her mind is only half formed with thoughts to pass. And she says, this important one statement, she says, well, now that's done and I'm glad it's over. So here, she just wanted to get off with whatever this fellow wants to do. She just wanted to get it over with. So what she does after that, she just smoothens, as if nothing has happened. She just smooths her hair with an automatic hand. That means when you see that she's smoothing her hair with an automatic hand, it means that it is a regular thing that she's been enduring throughout. It's not something that has happened, a one-off situation that has taken place. It's been happening again and again and again. So she smooths her hair with an automatic hand. She puts her record on the gramophone. So she feels that to escape from the only thing is through music. And the music she puts on is filtering through all of London. So here you will notice that Eliot, after this particular scene, the typist scene is over, the music is on, the music is wafting across the Strand, up Queen Victoria Street. Oh, city, city, I can sometimes hear beside a public bar in Lower Thames Street the pleasant whining of a mandolin and a clatter and chatter from within. So you can imagine yourself, you have witnessed, or rather you have heard Tiresias witness the scene between the typist and this particular person, and you're walking across the street, and the music is wafting through, it is carrying across to this whole place. And what is Tiresias doing? He is lamenting on the loss of true intimacy. And in the midst of all the fishermen's lounge and the general chatter, he can see the image of a magnificent city. And music here evokes a memory of greater times, and perhaps there is a place beyond this wasteland where men and women can truly live together in harmony. So, this is what Tiresias, he's lamenting and he's thinking of. Then you come across a sudden shift in Eliot style, a sudden shift. The river sweats oil and tar, the barges drift with turning tide. Now here, and red sails wide to leeward swing on the heavy spar. So here, this could be the lament of the nymphs, lamenting the loss of the Thames. Thames is polluted, filthy, corroded, the barges are drifting. See how the times have changed. Earlier, Thames was, it was something everybody would love to be around and enjoy, having an evening walk. But now, what do you see? A polluted, filthy, corroded barges drifting by. That is the scene that he has painted here. Then he talks about Elizabeth and Leicester. Beating oars, the stern was formed, a gilded shell, red and gold, the brisk swell rippled shores. Now, one thing you should realize when we are doing this is that we talked about all these incidents, about these interactions between Eugenides and, this lady, Mrs. Porter and Philomel, and then you talked about the typist and the clerk. They are all coming from the lower rungs strata of society, and suddenly he is moving to the higher strata. So we are having a shift of relationship from the lower class to that of the aristocracy. So here he is talking about Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth, she was a virgin when she became a queen. She was restricted from her own choice or matters of the state to be unaligned to any other country. So she of her own volition, she did not even though she was in love with somebody, she did not continue with that affair because she knew that it would affect the control of the state. So the downside was that she had no real prospect of committing to a pure love. So you can imagine someone who is in love, who wants to love someone but can't do that, So she has got there's a tough choice that she has to make. So was the downside. She had no real prospect of committing to a pure love between the perceived lovers. So Elizabeth and Leicester were perceived to be lovers. Then you come to Trams and dusty trees. Highbury bore me, Richmond and Kew undid me. By Richmond I raise my knees. Now here, this is another unnamed woman. She is talking about a very frank and candid view of a sex act that she had. And this act caused her to unravel. Trams and dusty trees, Highbury bore me, Richmond and Kew, these are the places where she was, her literal place. My feet are at Moorgate and my heart under my feet. After the event, he wept. Now, there's another thing you should realize is that here you find the woman is at a dominating position than the man. In the game of the game of chess, you will find that they were saying what was it? What is that noise now? What is the wind doing? You know nothing. Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? The woman is always telling the man something and he's just not responding to her. So, she wants something from him in the game of chess. This is what I'm talking about from the game of chess. Now, if I just jump over to this particular part where my feet at Moorgate and my heart under my feet, here you will find the woman, she is in the upper position. Her literal place is at Moorgate, but she is emotionless. That means she is going about the motion of sex just like that. But there is a gender reversal. She is not feeling remorseful. She is unremorseful. She has no emotional investment in this encounter. In the previous ones, you find that the man is the one who is initiating, and he is, he is leaving the woman. But in this case, you will find that the woman, she is the one who is calling the shots. She has no emotional investment in the encounter. And the man here, he's regretting, and he's hinting at a reunion. He wants the relationship to continue, but the woman is silent. So here you will see, after the event, he wept. He's the one who is weeping, it is not her. He promised a new start. So he is begging her, come on, let's live together. I promise you this, I promise you that. I made no comment. What should I resent? So that means the woman, when she's speaking this, she says, I just remain silent. I'm not going to make an investment in this relationship. So she represents the cold, calculating, numb character. Unlike the scene in the game of chess, here she is the one who is cold and calculating. So, if you notice here now, in today's world, things have changed. It's not always the man who has the upper hand, it is the woman also. She can also call the shots when she wants to. Okay, continuing. On Margate sands, I connect nothing with nothing. The broken fingernails of dirty hands, my people, humble people who expect nothing. So, Margate sands is a location where Eliot's wife, Vivian, betrayed T.S. Eliot, Eliot was betrayed here, so that's why he's put this name Margate Sand. This is a place where he was betrayed by his wife. She was unfaithful to him. She had an adulterous affair with Burton Russell. And this is the place where he saw the deterioration of the sacred marriage vows. They take the vows, till death do us apart. And here he mentions, that she broke those vows. That is why he mentions this word, the broken fingernails of dirty hands. It's not worth having a ring on that finger. The broken fingernails of dirty hands, my people, humble people who expect nothing. So dirty hands represent an image of sin, not worthy of rings. Okay, so now we are coming to the end of the last part of the fire sermon. To Carthage I came, burning, 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 burning. O Lord, thou pluckest me out. O Lord, thou pluckest, burning. So here you have two lines, they are interacting. To Carthage is, there are two spiritual voices over here. One is the voice of Augustine, and the other is the voice of the Buddha. So the first one is where Augustine, to Carthage I came. So that reference is actually, Augustine goes to this unholy city of Carthage. And when he goes there, he discovers that the city is a den of degenerate citizens. There's a lot of sinful activities taking place, and he is quite disgusted by looking at it. And he describes the event in his Confessions. And burning, 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 burning is the Buddha's voice, which reverberates, which says that your desires can be eliminated by only purging yourself. The desires must be eliminated to purge your sufferings. To purge your suffering, you have to, it's like initiation into fire. Only if you get into fire and you purify yourself, only then all your desires will be eliminated. And Augustine is praying, the third line, Augustine is praying to the Lord to pluck him out of the city of Carthage. But this prayer does not seek consummation. There is no conclusion. And it ends with the last word of the Buddha saying that the burning of desire, the elimination of desire, is the only way to cope with suffering. So, friends, with that, we come to the end of this fire sermon. I don't know if we have missed out anything, and I hope you're still awake after this marathon session. The third section, the fire sermon. Okay, this I have covered this completely with you. Yes. So that's it from my side.